Rahim. Dear participants, welcome to this live webinar. We will be starting just in a couple of seconds. We have a lot of people in the waiting rooms joining us. So I'm just taking another 5-10 seconds to let all the people inside. And from that point onward, we will be starting our webinar. Okay, Ji, once again, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this webinar on using transformative learning in the context of dynamically changing environment. On behalf of the Institute of Knowledge and Leadership and in collaboration with the University of Management and Technology and the School of Business and Economics, we welcome you all to this live webinar. I would first start with a small introduction of today's topic. The current situation that has suddenly disrupted the environment has caught all of us off guard across the globe. This webinar, therefore, has been arranged so that we can learn the transformation of our cognitive, affective, and attitudinal paradigms to grasp the turbulence in business organizations and their context, as well as absorbing expected societal disarrays in general. What do we mean exactly is that as this pandemic unfolds during the summer of 2020 by the spread of novel coronavirus, this has been extended to an unprecedented level. One must remember that as the viral disease broke out in China in November 2019, Pakistan was showing considerable economic growth in several matrices, including easing of barriers of entry of foreign investment and improving financial transparency, so on and so forth. But all sectors in life have been severely impacted. The disease is a sudden environmental disruption which has caught the entire globe off guard. All external organizational and societal contingencies, which include technology, style of management, learning process, communication modes, supply chain modes of shipping and living, they all have been hit left, right, and center by this pandemic. This environment hence demands an integrated transformation response from our side as well as all the people living in the society. Basically, today's webinar is going to be talking about a few objectives. First one will be to understand and appreciate the need for transformation in the current situation through critical reflection. Number two, comprehend how individual level transformation leads to a spiral of collective transformation at societal levels. Number three, utilize transformative learning in the context of education and learning. And last but not the least, define the broad contours of the ways of living in a post-pandemic world. These are the four objectives that we will try to address in today's webinar. Before I proceed further, some small house rules. We will be requiring throughout this session to be interacting with you either on the mic or on the chat screen. But once we open the mic for discussions and when we would like to take the participants' points of views, we would request you to please raise your hands so that the moderators of this webinar can open your mic and you can come and talk on the mic. please keep your mics open at that particular time after you have risen your hands, and the moderators would let you come on the mic. It is imperative to please keep your webcams closed at all times. I repeat, please keep your webcams closed at all times during the webinar because that causes distractions. Now, coming back to the topic, we have divided our webinar into four main pastures. The first, we will be looking at life before the pandemic. The second pasture of discussion today would be defining the new normal way of life. The third pasture will be talking about the transformative process. And the fourth and final pasture of today will be talking about transformed life after the pandemic and how is it going to be. Now, for this, basically, it is a privilege and a huge honor for me especially and for my team to have Dr. Naveed Yazdani on board with us, and he has been very kind to give us time to come and talk on this such a broad and complicated topic. We are very thankful to Dr. Naveed Yazdani for taking time out and giving us time for coming and discussing this process, as Dr. Naveed Yazdani is one of the experts in this particular area. Although Dr. Naveed Yazdani has a very bright and sparkling career under his experience, but I would still take the liberty of just introducing Dr. Naveed Yazdani very briefly. He has been working since 1984 and has skills and expertise in the areas of medicine, medical administration, healthcare systems, management consulting, corporate training, OD consulting, quality consulting, teaching, and media presentations. His research include qualitative and critical discourse of management in the context of different civilizations, interdisciplinary research encompassing management and social media sciences. In teaching, his interests lie in experiential teaching in the fields of OD, HRD, philosophy of management, learning organizations, and general development and framework of organizational theory. His consulting interests involve and revolve around training and development through OD interventions. Currently, Dr. Naveed Yazdani is spearheading the School of Business and Economics at University of Management and Technology as Dean. He is a certified NLP certified holder, international. He has certifications in International Quality Agency, Lead Auditor QA, BBC Broadcasting certification. He's certified ISO 9000, SA 8000, and TQM trainer. Dr. Naveed Yazdani, and this is very important that why we have also called him, has a degree as a medical doctor, and he graduated from one of the best seats of Pakistan and the world, the King Edward Medical College. He then went to LUMS to do his MBA, and finally, he has done his PhD in management from the University of Management and Technology, Lahore. Dr. Naveed Yazdani, sir, it's a pleasure having you here. If we can have Dr. Naveed Yazdani on cam, that would be excellent. Dr. Naveed, can you hear me? Mr. Abdul Jizdani, are you here? Okay, so we will be having Dr. Naveed with us very shortly. But basically, and we will obviously asking him today, how are we going to adjust and how are we going to adopt? What is it that we should be doing as far as, combating this challenge that everyone is facing. We are all affected with this particular situation, and what we will be doing today is we will be asking Dr. Naveed very directly on what should be. First of all, we will try to understand and we will try to learn from Dr. Saab what this entire situation is. We are going to then actually, look at the theoretical understanding that is underpinning transformative learning, and then we will also be asking him to letting us know of any model or any steps that we should as human beings be adopting to actually, to how can we proceed and how can we move further. Dr. Naveed Jazdani, I guess, is with us. There are always technical glitches. So, Dr. Naveed Jazdani, can you hear me? If you can unmute your mic, can you hear me, sir?
Assalamu alaikum, Ali Reza Saab and all the
जी अस्सलाम
participants.
वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब,
This is
वेलकम वेलकम सर, वेलकम बैक.
uh,
मैं आपका इंट्रोडक्शन करवा रहा था सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स को. सर,
right.
थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर गिविंग अस टाइम. थैंक यू very much for being here. We are really privileged, we are very honored, and we are all here very much ready to learn from you today a lot. So basically,
It's my
I
pleasure
have
to be here, in fact.
Thank you, sir. I have introduced the topic to the participant. I am just checking, we are touching almost 90 participants in the audience right now.
Right.
And they are all very much ready to, hear from you, learn from you, and take important insights from your good self. So, sir, I will basically come straight to the point. I have talked about the overall topic today. I have talked about the objectives. I've talked about the pastures. But what it is that we want to now exactly know about transformative learning, Dr. Saab. But before we go into the intricacies of transformative learning, I would request you, sir, to kindly walk us through by reflecting back on what was life before the pandemic and what was actually happening and what has actually happened that has obligated us to adopt any form of mercurial transformation right now. This will be for the help of the audience and for myself as well to clarify the standpoint from where we are coming from. So, Dr. Saab, the first question to you, what was life before pandemic? All yours, sir.
All right, Ali Saab, thank you very much again. And it's a very nostalgic question. I mean, it was only 15 and 16 weeks ago that life was running normally, and we have started to forget that normal because the streets were full, shopping malls were full, we were having classes face to face with our students, we were enjoying the cool breeze of Lahore spring, and not even in our wild dreams did we imagine that world will change like this in a span of 3.5 to 4 months. So life before this was, I would say, normal, the old normal. And it was life as usual. I mean, people didn't get panic when they had a bit of fever, itchy throat, or pain in throat was sort of, just a routine, and nobody cared about it. And, suddenly it all changed. And people used to shake hands, they used to embrace each other. Everything was physically interactive. And nobody ever thought that everything will shift online and then we will be quarantined. Many of the people even didn't understand the word quarantine, what it meant. And so it was like it was 4 months ago, absolutely, um, we have seen it all our life. And about quarantines and about the pandemics, we had only read about in books and in history. And we were touched by short epidemics like, dengue or SARS virus or Ebola or the bird flu disease. And that sort of shook us, but only for a time being, because they were epidemics very localized in local pockets of the world. But never in our wildest dreams, even in movies, we could imagine that, this sort of situation will arise. So we were in a very comfortable environment. We were in our comfort zones, which we have known since our birth. And that was the life before it.
Okay, okay. So I really liked your one statement. You said it was life as usual, and then suddenly it was a roller coaster. Nobody even initially knew what actually hit us. It actually took us a long time to realize that. Okay, so then if you are saying that life was as usual, so now I want to come to this new buzzword I've been hearing so much. People are, using this thing. It's the new normal, if you know what I mean. What actually is this new normal, or what we call it the new real, and what does it encapsulate? I would be interested to understand which facets of business especially fall under its ambit, and what are the things that are included in it or not it. Your thoughts, Dr. Saab, on this.
Okay, you see, Brother Ahmed Ali Raza Saab, that especially in the context of business, now life was again, business was as usual, and people were coming to offices, interacting with each other. Now I'm going to share screen with you to sort of, try to understand collectively what this new normal is all about. And can you see the screen,
जी
please?
we can see the screen. आप इसको full screen कर दें please. Full screen कर लें.
I'm trying that. Okay. And you see, this is what is going to happen in the context of business in the post-corona world. There will be a lot of shifts, and first of all, we were all living in a globalized world, and the humanity in general and business world in particular was very proud of it. Everything is connected, and we are living in a world which is transnational. We are living in a world which is the world of global village. Now that has changed, because the whole pressure is on supply chains, and international supply chains are disrupted. Therefore, there will be a shift towards localization. Not that, in terms of online or IT infrastructure localization, but in terms of developing localized supply chains, especially for the products which are mass commodities in a particular country. Obviously, people will buy brands. The availability of brands will be restricted. It will not be like, maybe for some time, it will not be like it used to be. But the emphasis will be on developing local supply chains, on developing local businesses, on developing local manufacturing. And above all, the old business axiom, which has started from the e-commercialization of business, is that there will be a lot of push towards the digital and the virtual. No doubt the world was already moving towards it, but if it was moving at a pace of a fast train, now it will move at a pace of a supersonic jet, or maybe a spaceship, because the only way people will get connected with each other, will make the transactions happen, is through being digital. So digital, online businesses, online connectivity, social media, which was already, throbbing and really in the scene, but now it will become a necessity. First, it was probably a luxury, then it became a, sort of specialized product. Then people used it as a way to connect with people, but now there is no way out. I mean, right now, look at us. We are connected through it, and we are totally dependent on our internet connectivity. And if we get any glitches in the technology, we have to be quiet and we have to wait for the connections to come back. So digital world will get a real push in this new normal of specifically in the context of business. Then cash, in people who are interested in accounting will realize that investing in bonds and investing in stocks and companies, in making investments, and not really, I'm not saying not really caring about liquidity, but caring more about efficiency, effectivity, and other business ratios, have now realized that cash is the real king of the business, because they have to pay people in the face of restricted revenues, in the face of payables which are not coming, which they are not paying, and the receivables which they are not getting. So liquid assets will assume once more, like in olden days, liquid assets will assume very, very high importance in the accounting and in the business world, because it is actually the cash which is the biggest crunch we are seeing. Then, businesses, if you look at the traditional business model, we get a sort of formula: the total costs are equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, whereas fixed costs are taken as given. You can't control overheads. Even if 500 people are in the factory, or even if there are 5,000 people in the factory, fixed cost will be the same. So that has to be changed. It has already changed, but it will change further, because fixed cost will get converted into variable costs. People will say, all right, if we have 1,000 employees in a particular company or a university, let's call 200 and save the fixed cost of 800 other employees. So in that way, the overheads and all the utility bills will be dependent on the number of people coming to the factories, or coming to the organizations, or coming to the universities. So fixed cost, the old concept, the traditional concept of fixed cost, will be changed, and it will change towards more like variable costs. So because people cannot, in this crunch and after the life with Corona, and nobody knows how long it will continue. Another thing which will change is businesses will start building sensing capabilities. Now, in the traditional sense, we used to call it environmental scanning capabilities. And you teach business strategy yourself, and you know that we teach our students the ability to scan environment, pest analysis, SWOT analysis. Now, even the scenario buildings, even the projection of sensitivity analysis, they will get further sophisticated, and companies will obviously, along with trying to build something which is a capability of being able to control the sensing and control the environment scanning to a very, very sophisticated level, so that they can gauge it from very, very minutely, and they can, because nobody expected this sort of catastrophe to hit, and if not, it has already hit. So now, since the entire shift will be on online and technology and IT related communications and business linkages, therefore these sensing capabilities and market knowledge and industry knowledge through technology will become a very, very important aspect of the new businesses. As I already mentioned, supply chains will be under a lot of dynamically changing and dynamically transforming phenomena, and they will become more localized, and the focus will shift towards more efficiency. Supply chains will be shorter now because longer supply chains mean more cost, and that is what is not available at the moment. Now, companies and businesses always responded to turbulent environment by being dynamic, by being adaptable. And as we understand, as we are students of, those who are students of organization theory and business management, they understand that dynamically changing environment is responded by through, according to the contingency view of management. If an environment is dynamic, then a company has to respond to it dynamically. Now the environment is not only dynamic, it is highly turbulent, unexpected, and it has shifted 360 degrees over a span of time, which was 15 to 16 weeks for most of the countries and most of the businesses. So businesses now need to be agile. They need to be, the best metaphor which comes to my mind is like a wicket keeper who's waiting for an edge, and he's all there all the time. And sometimes the ball will come to him without an edge, sometimes it will be hit towards the boundaries, but when that edge comes, even if it comes after 2 hours, it has to be taken. Similarly, companies, if they are agile and they have built their sensing capabilities and they have built their control towers of sensing capabilities, just like the air traffic control of the aviation industry, and they are on the lookout for any change which they can exploit, even a change like Corona, which can be exploited. Today I was reading somewhere that let's try to take advantage of the Corona, and people have taken advantage of it. And there are examples of Netflix, and there are examples of Zoom, who have actually built their fortunes over it. I mean, Netflix was struggling before Corona, but then, and Zoom was also in a mediocre revenue position, but they've really, Zoom has really, I think, grown by about 250%, and the average growth rate of Netflix has crossed 40%. So agility, all these things put together will be, it's a glimpse of what the business world will look like after the, I'm not saying after the pandemic, because we don't know when it will end, but during it and maybe after it, because until a vaccine is discovered, or until a herd community concept of 70-80% getting infected will take time. Both of these scenarios will take 2 to 3 years. So we'll have to live with it. So living with it will dynamically change the way business was done. It will change the way society was run, and it will change the way we used to live our life.
Okay. So some really thought-provoking points over there, Dr. Saab. I was writing down, and this slide that you are sharing is actually summarizing it all. The shift towards, I'll just quickly recap, the shift towards localization, the concept of the cost structure being amended now, supply chains have to be shorter, smarter, leaner, and all that thing. Digitization is going to be the buzzword. And then and another important thing, the environmental sensing or environmental scanning that you have addressed is going to be. And last but not the least, you have told us that we have to live with it. Now, how smartly do we live with it? How prudently do we address and combat this situation is actually going to be the key differential between life and death. Excuse me, I'm using this word, but for the lack of a better word, I'm just trying to and there are some, Dr. Saab, I was reading the chat as well. There are some pretty interesting comments already spurring up in the chat. We will be addressing to those in a short while. but people are talking about business. People in the chat, people are talking about business, people are talking about, you know, teaching, people are talking about education, and rest assured Dr. Saab will be covering those things. Although this topic that we have used is a very, very broad topic, and obviously it cannot be addressed in, you know, the short span of time that we have. But Dr. Saab, I cannot but thank you that you actually agreed to, you know, come and enlighten us, because we thought at IKL and at the university that it was high time we needed, you know, proper guidance and proper you know, inputs from somebody who can actually you know, give us the right approach to all this. Dr. Saab, I'll be coming to my next thing, next question. But before we come to the next question, Dr. Saab, I think so we need to involve the audience a little bit. All right. And what we will do is, audience, as we promised that this is going to be an interactive session. Okay. So far we have discussed two things. The first one was life before the pandemic, and then defining the new normal. Now अब जरा आप लोगों को हमने on board लेना है, और हम लोग चाहेंगे कि आप लोगों की इनपुट्स जो हैं वो हम लोग जो है वो यहाँ पे आप सब लोगों के साथ शेयर करें। मैं आप लोगों की स्क्रीन्स के ऊपर एक पोल शेयर करने लगा हूं। आपके सामने कुछ क्वेश्चंस आएंगे, और हम चाहते हैं कि आप टू द बेस्ट ऑफ योर ओपिनियन एंड टू द बेस्ट ऑफ योर नॉलेज उन क्वेश्चंस का आंसर दें। जब सारे लोग जो है वो ये आंसर दे देंगे, तो उसके बाद मैं सारे ऑडियंस के जो रिजल्ट्स हैं वो यहाँ पे शेयर करूंगा। तो अभी अगर आप देखेंगे तो इन अनदर 2 or 3 seconds some questions will be in front of you and you will start answering those questions on your devices. आप चाहे मोबाइल पे हैं या अगर आप लैपटॉप पे हैं या टैबलेट पे हैं, तो आपने वहां पे राइट चॉइसेस को सिलेक्ट करके तो आप लोगों ने उनका जो है वो रिजल्ट जो है वो हमें बताना है। वी विल देन शेयर। अब आपके सामने क्वेश्चंस आ गए होंगे। इट्स अ वेरी शॉर्ट पोल, it's a very short poll, and it has a few choices below them, and whatever you think, to the best of your knowledge and to the best of your abilities and to the best of your opinions, जो भी आप बेहतर समझते हैं, आप काइंडली उनका आंसर करना शुरू कर दें। I hope that the questions are in front of everyone right now, and they will be, Dr. Saab, they will be, we have created a poll and we would want you know, the point of view of what the people think. Some pretty interesting questions over there as well, and then from there, from the results that we generate, Dr. Saab, I think we can carry the discussion forward.
We are getting some 50% response to the questioning, challenging, and deliberating on things before accepting them, and that has now decreased to 33, but again 50%. So it is in line with, you know, what we are about to say, and it's about transformative processes. So that means people who are here now, 67 or 57% of them are actually going to question and challenge and deliberate on things before acting blindly, which is the very spirit of, as I say, you know, that percentage has decreased drastically, but now again it is coming back. And in terms of the second question, which is generally speaking,
risk taker hai ya risk minimizer hai? haan ji,
right. So risk taker are 45%, which is a good thing, and but you know, it's about 50-50. Maybe this percentage will be changing in coming
abhi result ji abhi it is just we have 29% voting in right now only. ये अभी 29% chunk के basis के ऊपर अभी आप अभी the voting are still being done. Now we are at 34%. 34% of the people have submitted the votes.
So let's start commenting when we have about 50% at least.
We will, Dr. Saab, once we will cross a certain number, and whenever you will give me the signal, when we will have enough results in, what we will do is we will be sharing this result with the audience in front of them. सारा result उनके सामने भी आ जाएगा, और डॉक्टर साहब फिर आप जो है वो हम लोग एक एक क्वेश्चन को देखते हुए हम उसको जो है वो कैटेगराइज कर लेंगे.
Right.
52% of the audience has so far replied.
I think when
Okay.
we touch about 60-65%, then that'll be good enough. About two-thirds.
ठीक
What's
है
your norm? What's your norm in your webinars?
जी. डॉक्टर साहब ये अभी 59% है ना, तो मोस्टली पीपल विल बी एट द एंड ऑफ देयर सबमिशंस. तभी एकदम
Okay.
से ये भी कोविड की तरह सर स्पाइक करता है ऊपर एकदम से.
Okay. That is exponential.
It's exponential. Somebody told me a very interesting thing,
Mm.
Dr. Saab, just on a
Yeah.
very lighter note, that
Mhm.
the most negative word for 2020 is positive.
That's true.
So ये भी unfortunately ये भी spike करेगा. Not a good example to be using in these days, but let's see if
It's a new, it
we
is a
can
new
teach.
normal now, probably.
Gee, it is the new normal. It is definitely the new normal, Dr. Saab.
I think we have got about two-thirds responses by now.
Gee, we have 67% people have voted. I will be ending the poll in the next 5 seconds now.
Okay.
So please, if you are at the end of your poll, kindly submit it quickly so that we... Okay, Dr. Saab, we have 70%. I will be ending the poll now.
Right.
Okay. And... Okay, and now, Dr. Saab, I'm going to share the results of the poll with everyone.
Right.
So
Please.
everyone should be able to see the results. Dr. Saab, आपको results नजर आ रहे हैं?
Yeah, I can,
Okay.
and it's it's nice to see the first question. About 97% people will be flexible. I mean, I can only summarize it because it will take a lot of time if I start reading them, but only 3% will be predetermined, and that is the need of the hour. As far as second question is concerned, generally speaking, risk takers 44% and risk 44%. This number will probably change because the new normal will demand us to take risk not only in business but in our daily communications and the way in which we live. Experimenting, when I say risk, it means experimenting. So probably
Okay.
people will become more experimental and become more innovative in the ways in which they connect and in the ways in which they spend their life. And as far as the COVID situation is concerned, that will get resolved. Yes, largely people think that it will take more than 6 months, and this is in line with the epidemiologist opinion. It is in line with the leading medical medical journals, and that will lead to major disruption in life. 53% say yes, but 47% have said no, and that's a little bit surprising for me because I thought by now people will have experienced that major disruption. But maybe this number, I think in coming weeks or in coming months or so, this number will change, and people will experience major disruptions, because if it was not a major disruption, we would have been sitting in a seminar. So the very fact that we are conducting a webinar means it is a major disruption.
Yes.
Anyway, and as far as I have indulged in radical
Sorry,
changes.
Dr. Saab, sorry to interject. Work from home. That's a major disruption.
Exactly. And I think 47% of the people who have said no will be saying yes after listening to this discussion. And yes, people have been doing radical changes in their daily routine, which is good and which is aligned with the transformative processes which we'll be discussing shortly. And the new norm which they have understood is, I'm glad that many people have really understood it very well. They're adopting a mixed model of working while anticipating that pandemic is going to stay. So it will be mixed, more inclined towards technology, more inclined towards online life, but it will be obviously mixed. And that if I had to choose only one option, to combat this disease, I would say that it is the duty of 61% saying is the role of society. And I agree with this, because government can interject, or government can intervene to a certain extent. Government can make policies, government can make SOPs, government can try to implement them, but they cannot police everyone. So it is a collective societal responsibility to take it as a value to safeguard ourselves and to safeguard others, and carry out the SOPs, wear masks, and keep the social I would say physical distancing, because social distancing has
जी
decreased. In fact, people have become
जी
more closer. So keep the physical distance, safe distance. Keep on washing the hands. Keep on using the sensitizers. We are not like this, but we'll have to do it because. And there are many questions which people ask that if this virus is killed by washing hands and why there is no treatment. That's a separate debate. But it's true that society has to take its responsibility, and it is wherever this disease has been controlled, it is the society which has fought back. Governments, no
जी
doubt, have led, but the society has followed suit. And if government is saying something else and society is not following it, then there will be trouble. And when I say these words, Pakistan is at number 4 or 5 of the worst managed corona countries in the world, and that's not a very heartening thing to say, but it's a fact of the life.
बिल्कुल ठीक है, बिल्कुल ठीक है. Okay, so Dr. Saab, now I will close the results. I will
Right.
close the. I will stop sharing the results of the poll. But the audience, this is not the only time we would be asking you to interact. There is more to come. But as you know, that discussions when they start with Dr. Saab, those of you who know Dr. Saab, they become so interesting, and everybody so gets so entrenched in them that it would, and I would want to go ahead straight to the next point. And now डॉक्टर साहब a very important, ये बहुत हमारी chat में भी बहुत ज्यादा questions आ रहे हैं, तो हम
I'm
इसको भी
looking at
address.
chat, in fact. Can
जी
I quickly answer those questions, which I can
Dr. Saab,
see
we
in
will
front of
do
me?
that. We will do that
Okay,
in the open mic session. We
no
will
problem.
take all the questions, all the comments by the participants. लेकिन मैं इस वक्त जो है वो जो जरूरी है वो ये समझता हूँ कि, और इसके बाद हम लोग माइक खोल देंगे और we will have a good discussion with the audience. So audience, rest assured, your chance to talk to Dr. Saab is almost there as well. But before we do that, डॉक्टर साहब ये समझने की जरूरत है कि ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव प्रोसेस एक्चुअली चीज क्या है, ठीक है.
Right.
This would be now actually a good time to dive deeper into the main topic of this webinar, and my specific question, sir, to you is to kindly explain us what do we mean by transformative process. Now, as I said earlier, time thoda hai and we cannot be covering it holistically in its entirety, but if you could please only let us know what initiates this process, इसके पीछे theoretical underpinnings क्या हैं जो कि बैठी हुई हैं, और most importantly, what should be the province to adopt this process. जी डॉक्टर
Right.
साहब.
Okay, coming it quickly to the share screen, because I think I'll start with an metaphor basically, and that metaphor is of a tree, which I frequently use. Those of you who are my students, or those of you who have attended my trainings or seminars would know that, just looking at this tree, this tree has leaves and a stem system and a trunk and roots. Now, this is a metaphor for individual personality. What we see above the ground, obviously above the root system, is what we call as a personality, and what we see people as behaving. But there is a lot that personality under the ground, just like a root system of a tree. We act and we behave and we walk and we talk and we eat and we dress and we sit in a certain way because we believe in certain beliefs and because we give priority to certain values. So those things are obviously our value system and our belief system, which we have acquired from our environment, from our family, generally from environment, and which we have thought about sometimes, and sometimes we have not thought about, and we have assimilated them uncritically. And underlying those beliefs and values, in fact, I'd like to come to the underlying part later on, but let me go to the next slide, which is now I'll come back to this tree slide. Before this, when we talk about transformative processes, we need to understand that transformation occurs at mental levels. We need to change the beliefs and values, which are our cognitive or our mental sort of collective subconscious on the basis of which our conscious is working. So when we are reflecting, when we are thinking, are we transforming? Mostly people think that, you know, thinking logically or rationally about things will transform us as an individual. But the the entire edifice of transformative learning theory is based on the concept of critical reflection. Now, how does critical reflection differs from reflection is a long debate, and there is a lot of paradoxes, a lot of discussion can be built around it, but obviously because of lack of time, I would like to go back to the slide which I was showing you, just to capture the difference between critical thinking or thinking. Now, when we just know what are our beliefs or values, that is probably reflection. It's not, I mean, reflection on business or reflect. When we are reflecting on ourselves, so we understand. Many of us even don't reflect to that extent, and we just keep on living. We just keep on living. But if we take a moment and sit back and try to analyze, what do I prioritize in my life? Is it my family? Is it my career? Is it money? Is it religion? And similarly, what is my belief system? Why do what do I believe in? When we reach the beliefs and values, that is when we are reflecting on ourselves. But if we want to change ourselves, then we need to understand what are the underlying assumptions of those beliefs and values. Now, these assumptions are rarely challenged by us because the busy schedules of life do not give us the time to go to this level, and our education system in general, not in Pakistan, across the world, does not teach people to reflect critically. It only encourages a very rationalistic or logical instrumental way of learning. This demands time and this demands energy. That if you believe that all Muslims are terrorists, for example, if you believe that, and people generally had this notion, have they ever sat back and have they ever asked themselves, why do I believe this? Is it because of media? Is it because I have actually seen Muslims committing terrorism? Is it because I've actually seen in their history that they are terrorists? Similarly, when we say that all non-Muslims are, or any person who is not a practicing Muslim is dishonest, if we have this belief, why do we have this belief? What is the underlying assumption? Have we seen it? Is it based on our experience, or we have just heard it and assimilated it uncritically, without filtering it? Now, mind it that beliefs and values are actually what we call as perceptions. Beliefs and values are like a lens in front of our eyes through which we see this world. Beliefs and values color this world for us. If our beliefs and values are green, we will see the world green. Similarly, if they are red, we will see the world red. But have we questioned those beliefs and values? That is the difference between reflection and critical reflection. If we have or question the basic beliefs and values, underlying assumptions which we have collected uncritically from media, from our families, from our environments, then we are not reflecting critically. And critical reflection is the basic requirement of transformation. There is no transformation possible. For example, if you really want to transform a tree, you cannot cut its branches. You cannot just cut or prune its leaves. They will come back the next season. If you really want to transform it, you take it out of the root and you put new seeds in it, and then something new will grow. Similarly, if you want to transform a belief, a behavior, or a personality, we need to undergo to the underlying assumptions. And if they are not change through critical reflection. Challenging our own self is critical reflection as far as individual reflection is concerned. And that brings me to classical theory of transformative learning, which very quickly I'll try to show you. This is Maslow was the person who actually in 1970s presented this theory, and he said that transformation starts with a disorienting dilemma. Disorienting dilemma means something which you have never seen in your life before, something which triggers a paradigm shift. And I don't think in these days there is a better example of disorienting dilemma than Corona. We had never experienced pandemic in our lives. We could never imagine that world will come to be like it is today. And we will be sitting at homes and working from homes and taking classes from homes, taking exams from home as a student. So they had never imagined that they will be, taking exams, take home exams, for example, or that their entire course participation and quizzes will be dependent on their connectivity, not their physical presence alone. So disorienting dilemma leads to paradigm shift, which means it generally, he thought was that self-examination, a critical assessment. Now, these following three steps are what we have just discussed. After a disorienting dilemma, if we do not indulge in critical reflection, the chances of transformation finish. Because disorienting dilemma is only an inducer. This disorienting dilemma can be induced in classes. This disorienting dilemma can be induced in organizations. This disorienting dilemma can come from nature like it has come. So if we don't critically then assess what has changed, have we adopted to this dilemma or have we ignored it? After critically assessing it, then we indulge in the process of rational dialogue with self. What do we do now? And then we plan a course of action. Then we acquire more skills, like businesses will need to acquire skills, sensing capabilities and control towers, and getting the digital on top. And then the new roles are tried, and building of new competencies and self-confidences. When we build new competencies to even in personal life or at work life, then we get more confidence. And the final step is reintegration of all of this, which is, in fact, transformation. So, in short, transformation or transformative processes, instead of 10 steps, I'll just briefly describe 4 steps. The disorienting dilemma, something which has happened out of blue, which we have never seen. Like if you see a genie, it will be a disorienting dilemma. But if you see a car flying, it will be a disorienting dilemma as well. And if you see a teacher in the class presenting a scenario which is totally out of the box, which is totally out of the norms of normal routine of the class of lecturing and memorization, and he indulges you, he takes interest in your personal life, or he and she guides you personally, that is also a disorienting dilemma. I will personally give my example that I experienced a very high level of disorienting dilemma when I was trying to understand the history. Why, for example, people are oppressed today. So I read a lot of history, not particularly to explore this question, but then it dawned on me, people have been oppressed right from the beginning. Only names have changed. I mean, in the beginning, it was the master-slave relationship. Masters were few, slaves were a lot more in number. Then it became, landowner versus the serf versus the serfs and the peasants, landowner versus the labor. Then it became bourgeoisies versus the proletariats, the business people, the newly emerging class in West after the Renaissance, and the proletariats, the labor force. Then in the modern world, it became corporate world, the top management versus the other. Top management always a few, and the others is always a large number of people. So it is that was a disorienting dilemma to me. That in fact, right from the beginning of recorded history of humanity, we have not changed a bit. Um, just and that forced me to think why it has been. That forced me to think and undergo the 4 steps: first disorienting dilemma, then critical reflection, and then taking rational thinking, and then taking an action. And when I thought about it rationally and when I critically reflected, I realized, this is my own realization and I can be challenged on it, that the only instrument of oppression today is actually the financial element, the tool of interest. And it has been around for centuries. Interest is not something which has been coined in recent times. Interest, usury, interest, riba, whatever you call it, even in the Roman Empire, interest was something which the archbishops, the popes, the whole clergy of church and the Roman Empire used heavily to extort money from people. And on the basis of that, they oppressed people and they suppressed them. And then I thought, what is the alternative to this? No man-made system can be free of oppression. This is only the divine system, and that is, then I understood why riba or interest is haram in Islam, why it is declared as a war against the Almighty and against His Messenger. Only then, that was a disorienting dilemma to me. And it transformed my views about interest, which I used to think that what is wrong with interest? And what is, no economy can survive without it. But then I understood that if interest is creating class differences, and remember, all the major sins in Islam are not sins against God, but sins against humanity. So this is the biggest sin against humanity, that you suppress people, you oppress them through your wealth, you control them, you control their future, you control their present. You all know what is deep net and what is dark net, and which are the people in whose hand these internets are working. We, the ordinary people, are seeing a superficial net, which is about 99% or 98% of the people, and the 1 or 2% which have access to all the other data available in this world are the ones who are actually controlling this world. So that was my personal disorienting dilemma. So far I think we have understood that transformative processes start with something which disorients, and it can be through your readings, it can be through your watching media, it can be through just thinking, it can be through seeing something happening which you have disoriented you, and then critically reflecting on it, and then having a self-dialogue, and then taking actions.
Dr. Saab, यहाँ पे before we go to the audience, and by the way, thank you very much for this elaborative, bird's eye view of the entire process. We will be going to the audience now, but before we can do that, मैं थोड़ी सी अपनी वो क्या कहते हैं आपसे क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे इसी प्रोसेस का पूछना चाह रहा हूँ, इसी से रिलेटेड. क्या ये लिनियर प्रोसेस ही होगा, या ये जो आपने 10 स्टेप्स बताए हैं, क्या इसमें लोग जो हैं वो डिफरेंट टाइम्स के पर मल्टीपल स्टेप्स को एट द सेम टाइम एड्रेस कर पाएंगे, और डज इट हैज टू स्टार्ट विद 1 एंड एंड एट 10? आई थिंक यू गॉट माय क्वेश्चन.
Yeah, I do. It usually, it starts with a disorienting dilemma. That is fine, but it is not a linear process as such, because Maslow only concentrated on the rational side or the cognitive side of transformation. People after Maslow brought in emotions, spirituality, and collectivity in transformative learning. So the process is not linear, it is exponential, it is circular. Because once you reintegrate and you take an action, then you can confront another disorienting dilemma based on that same knowledge, because you experience it, and you confront another disorienting dilemma. So it is just like going in circles.
Right.
It is not linear.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Saab, I think so. I should not be keeping the audience waiting anymore because there are a lot of questions and we would be going to the mic session now, Dr. Saab. And
Sure.
basically, we have a brilliant team which is working behind the scene. So if
Sure.
Mr. Abdur Rahman is here, please, I would request you to handle the next 15-20 minutes of the mic session. जिसने भी माइक के ऊपर कोई डिस्कशन करनी है, कोई कमेंट करना है, कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है डॉक्टर साहब से, तो वो जो है आप अपना हैंड रेज करेंगे एंड माय टीम विल बी गाइडिंग यू इन सीक्वेंस जैसे जैसे आपके हैंड रेज होते रहेंगे एंड देन आफ्टर वी हैव हैड द room questions, Dr. Sir, we will be going to the chat thing and we will also be addressing the questions in the chat because some participants have asked really excellent questions over there. And by the way, mashallah, we have touched we have more than 100 people right now in the webinar, Dr. Sir. So you are famous, sir. You are
Well,
famous.
thank you for their interest and thank you for their participation.
Okay, ji, if Mr. Abdur Rahman is here.
Yes, sir, I'm right here with you.
Okay, ji, it's all yours, sir.
Right. I have Ms. Maha Mijaz. I think she had her hand up, but she put it back down again. Saman Batul, I'm going to unmute your mic now.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, Walaikum Assalam.
First of all, this COVID-19 is basically a blessing for me that I am seeing my favorite teacher, Navizas Dani, after 10 years. So
Right.
I think this Corona thing is a blessing for me. It's a beneficial thing. Secondly, my question is, sir, as I'm working in a public sector university, and we are living in 1960s. We are all have our manual registers, ledgers. I'm working in a corporate branch. So my real question is that our colleagues and our system is just like lakeer ka fakir, and major portion of our budget allocation as the June is our closing budget month now, so that has been collapsed. Or next budget pe, we are not hopeful that HEC will grant us so much to fulfill our budget or our expense. So what do you think the scope of or future of such type of sectors which are never want to adapt any change and they want to say कि यार bank account में salary आ रही है, that's okay, but our organization एक बहुत बड़ी problem suffer कर रही है, which we can understand, but our workers are not motivated to help us ना. So what's the future of such sectors? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this question, Saman Batul, and it's a very genuine and valid question because public sector universities and public sector organizations, especially in Pakistan, have always had this bit of laziness. But in these days, when the salaries are coming, there will be least push. But at the end of the day, the students, especially who are of the faculty which is teaching there, they will stop attracting good people and good faculty if their behavior is like that. And if they are not changing, if they are not gearing up to build their sensing capabilities, investing in right things, investing in online technology, investing in IT infrastructure, then they will be lagging behind. And remember, education is something which is going to stay. And people will be, markets will be demanding people even in the days of Corona, and after that, there will be no dearth of jobs for talented people. There will be no dearth of jobs for young talented people. So universities, education will continue. The competition will get very tough, and as we said earlier, the new norm for public sector universities, they will have to adopt this new norm. Otherwise, they will perish, and they will perish in terms of less enrollments, less revenues. Government will also sustain them to a certain extent. And if government's overall revenues are also decreasing, so they might, make some cuts in their budgets. And once those cuts are made, and the universities are not prepared to grab to face the future, then it will become very difficult for them to survive for them in a very, very competitive market, because private sector will roller coaster them, really. Any other question?
Gee, I think we have Mr. Mohammed Mohsin. Mr. Mohammed Mohsin has got his hand up. I'll just unmute you now.
Can you hear me, sir?
Gee, Mr. Mohsin, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Assalamualaikum, sir. Hello, sir.
There's a bit of
Can you hear me, sir?
distortion. Yeah, I can, but it's not very clear. Anyway, you can throw your question.
जी मोहसिन साहब, आप अपना क्वेश्चन डॉक्टर साहब को पुट कर सकते हैं इफ यू हैव अ क्वेश्चन.
Yes, sir. I have a question. Sir, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि we have a weak economy right now. Like हमारे जो कंट्री का GDP है वो 30% आता है from agriculture sector. Due to lockdown attack जो अभी recently हुए हैं on farms, तो I think कि हमारी इकोनॉमी जो है वो सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाएगी क्योंकि हमारी जो मेजर एक्सपोर्ट्स होती हैं लाइक कॉटन, उसके ऊपर काफी बहुत बड़ा अटैक है फ्रॉम द लॉकडाउन. तो उसके बाद ये है कि लाइक जो पेस्टिसाइड कंपनीज होती हैं जो केमिकल्स प्रोवाइड करती हैं इन्हें लाइक फार्मर्स को, दे हैव नो इनोवेशन. उनको आई थिंक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन का नहीं पता कि व्हाट इज द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, क्योंकि हमारे जो फार्मर होते हैं वो ज्यादातर इलिटरेट होते हैं एंड दे डोंट नो हाउ टू यूज द टेक्नोलॉजी राइट नाउ. सो फ्रॉम द बैन फ्रॉम चाइना लाइक नवंबर से कोई एक्सपोर्ट वहां से नहीं हुई लाइक केमिकल्स की. तो आप क्या समझते हैं कि हमारे एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर पे इसका क्या इसका इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा? थैंक यू सर.
Thank you for this question, Mohsin Saab. And just a small correction that our economy is not 13% of GDP, is in fact 18% of the GDP, which comes from agri sector, and which means $68 billion, because our total GDP is about $342 billion of Pakistan. So 68 billion, that's about 20% of 18 to 20% of our economy. But before I come to your question, it's an irony that agriculture is, even in this budget, agriculture is not taxed. So that means we are working at 80% of our GDP because we have to subtract this $68 billion because we are not taxing them. And we are wasting the opportunity of raising around 200 to 300 Arab rupees of tax. So that's a big waste. We need to overhaul the agriculture sector, and starting from the structural reforms and starting from basic tax reforms. The supply chain of agriculture is a secondary thing, but we need to, government has to absorb this new norm at least now after 73 years if they have protected agriculture sector because of their vested interest. If they keep on doing it, then you're right that the economy will suffer, really suffer. And because from where will government collect this extra tax net of about 1,000 Arab rupees? That is beyond comprehension, because in the days of Corona, when the businesses are already down, when people are not spending that much, when economy is, I won't say showing negative growth, but when the overall world economy is contracting, how can we afford to miss this 20% of our GDP, and how can we afford to make it tax free? That is a basic question, and I think that is where the think tank of our government should be concentrated and critically reflecting on it. That protecting a few hundred or few thousand landlords is more important, or the future of the economy of the country and future of the economy of the 220 million population of Pakistan is more important. As far as the lack of innovation in pharma sector or lack of innovation in the pesticide sector is concerned, that is obviously an issue. But the bigger issue is the structural reforms. And when you mention locusts attack, obviously that will further decrease the agricultural output. But the landlords will feel no pressure because they will be charging prices of their free will, and like we are seeing in the sugarcane industry, like we've seen in the sugar industry. So they will have a free, like I said, they will be oppressing the farmers, they will be oppressing the masses, and if there is no accountability, then I'm sorry to say that, but the economy will suffer.
डॉक्टर साहब आप ही की बात को थोड़ा सा मैं आगे इसी प्रीटेक्स्ट में अगर if you allow me, we were having a similar session last week on the retail sector, and
Yeah.
one of the experts over there said that 60% of the retail sector of Pakistan is unorganized, which means they paid no taxes, which means I don't want to name names, but we all know बहुत बड़ी एक market है लाहौर में, I will not take the name, लेकिन वो 2000 रुपए टैक्स देते हैं. तो अगर if this is going to, you know, I don't know how much pilferage and how much wastage and how much leakage are we having in every sector, and I think so a proper kick-off point in respect to the question that Mohsin Saab asked would be to start thinking of this very important word that you have used, structural reforms. And I think so that can be a very good starting point to take this further. Okay, and I would now, Dr. Saab, want to come to the chat questions. Abdul Rahman Saab, do we have anybody else? Or can we proceed to the chat questions? Because I was seeing a lot of questions being asked in the chat rather than people raising hands.
That's
Abdul Rahman
correct,
Saab,
sir.
it's your call.
Yes, sir. I think we should go to chat now.
Okay, okay. So, Dr. Saab, if we can, I will start from the bottom and I will be scrolling up. Basically, so there is this one question. Well, it's a comment by Dr. Saud Qasim, and he says that recent experiments have shown that the insects can be caught and turned into feed for chicken. So that gives a good opportunity at the same time. All right. I will come to the yes. Okay. This is question. This is a question from Sultan Adil Saab. Sir, on what basis agriculture sector must be taxed? Will not it question food security? This is the
Sort of
question
food
by
security,
Mr.
yes.
Sultan Adil.
Yeah, Mr. Sultan Sahab, actually, the basis of taxing any industry is the wealth which they have accumulated, and it is the profits which they make, and it is the cost of doing business. So if they are in business, they should be taxed, and by that logic, in any other industry should not be taxed. But I don't think there will be any issue as far as food security is concerned. Once the norm develops of taxing, the entire world taxes the agriculture. Even our neighbors, who are just like us in many aspects, they tax agriculture. So if we want to break this feudal system, we need to introduce this norm of taxing, not only to save our economy, but to break this feudal mindset. And that would be a disorienting dilemma for many, but it will start a process of transformation which will help the entire country. So, as I said earlier, in order to save a few people, we cannot sacrifice millions.
Okay, Dr. Saab, I'm also receiving a lot of questions privately. So I would request, Madam Khavar Sultana has asked a very important and pertinent question, but I will be holding that question for the ending part because we will be covering one area and maybe then that question will be more pertinent. But then there is a very basic but a very important question, sir, from Mr. Izhar Ali. And he says that my question is in the context of Pakistan. How can we comply to digital transformation when millions in our country don't even have access to internet? A very pertinent question.
Yeah, true. We are talking about those people who have at least access to internet. It is right that millions in Pakistan do not have access to internet, but then millions have access to it. So we can't deny those millions who have access to it. The revolution will be started by those who have access, and the revolution will be started by the government and by the IT ministry and the IT industry. So the objective is that in Pakistan, many Pakistan is far ahead in terms of having internet connectivity than many countries. If you look at comparative data, you'll be surprised to know that Pakistan is not all that bad as far as internet connectivity is concerned. It is perhaps better than its neighboring countries, and it is much better than many other countries. So the idea is we have to make a start from somewhere. So our industry is fully aligned as far as the IT and online techs are concerned. Our general consumer base is quite aligned with, they have internet accessibility, they can do online shopping, and they do online shopping. So I think whatever number we have to start transforming from there, and then a snowball effect will develop, and then people will realize that there is no way out. Then obviously internet connectivity, and here the role of government will become more important, that how much of incentives, or how much of cuts or discounts are provided for internet connectivity, what sort of incentives are provided for it. Again, it will demand basic structural reforms in government policy to provide connectivity. But that is again the secondary step. First step is to utilize whatever is on board.
Okay. Dr. Saab, the chat is flooding with questions. By the way, I would request participants, if they want to ask the questions on the mic, they are more than free to do that. We have this open mic session for another 5 minutes, and then I would be requesting Dr. Saab to move on to the next topic of our discussion. So in the meantime, if you want to come and ask a question on the mic, you are more than welcome to do so. Nothing is going to, nobody's going to stop you. Dr. Saab, we are privileged also to have Dr. Rukhsana Kaleem over here. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. And she has a very important question. Sir, this question is very much close to my heart as well. So I would dovetail this question with mine as well. And she's brought up a very important point. What would be the impact on productivity, loyalty, and trust of those who have been recently laid off from their organizations once they get employment again after this pandemic is over? My question as well, sir. Same question.
First of all, my salam and my great respect to my teacher, Dr. Rukhsana Kaleem. And I'm really privileged that I have been her student, and I have worked under her deanship. And it's a great honor for me that she's here. And it's a great honor that she has asked a question. It is always very difficult to answer a teacher's question for many, many reasons. But ma'am, I fully agree with you that people who have been, I won't say laid off, I would say ditched in these circumstances. I think all those who have been laid off, in my mind, in my opinion, all the organizations should have waited, because this is the time to protect our employees. If we say that we are corporate, organizations are like families, and if we talk about those HR things, which are the HR rhetoric, if we talk about it, then we should show it as well. And they have started to cut people off from the base, which is even more disturbing and tragic. And this, to me, I mean, this is a strategy which it's too premature to adopt. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It is it's not a wise decision. It is without understanding the context of the life with Corona and after it. I think organizations should somehow try to convert the capabilities of those people in other areas, and try to give them protection and try to retain their employment, because for at least 3 to 6 months, organizations should be there. That is why, in the new norm, cash is king and all those things are getting more important, because otherwise like Twitter, for example, has given its employees a guarantee that they will not lay off anyone, and it will increase the commitment of all the employees of that organization. I think when they see people leaving, even if they are not laid off, they get demotivated. Even if they are at a top rank and they see people leaving at low rank because of being laid off, the spirit dampens, the demotivation spreads, and that's not a very wise thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saab. To all the participants, as a lot of people are from the education sector, Dr. Saab, there are questions coming from on education as well, but I am holding off those questions for the last question and answer session, if that is okay with you, because I
That's
think so
fine.
they will be more pertinent at that particular time. So if the participants can bear with me on this one, Dr. Saab, there is there are a lot of other questions. I think I will take the last two chat questions. Scope of this is a question by Maria Chaudhary, and she says that scope of distinct learning, effects of hype of digitization, especially for academia. Please convey question to Dr. Yazdani in the response. My mic has distortion issues. So she's basically asking about the scope of distant learning and the effects of hype of digitization that is being created. Is it really
It's
a
no,
hype?
it's not a hype now. It's a necessity. Maybe it used. I don't think it was ever a hype, because world and the collective human mind moves at a certain level, and it evolves. So digitalization was the need of the hour, but this disruption, this sudden disruption, has made it a necessity. So distant learning and online education are truly now interchangeable, because this is distance learning is occurring without online learning. That is not, it was not even happening before the onset of the disease, but now it has crossed from virtual teaching to virtual real teaching. And you know, the term VR, virtual reality, is now interchangeable with reality. So I think distant learning has only increased and only shown the highlighted the importance of online digital technologies.
Okay. For those people who are asking, आपके अगर आप फोन्स के ऊपर हैं या आप लैपटॉप के ऊपर हैं, अगर आप अपने फोन की स्क्रीन के ऊपर अपने थोड़ा सा मूव करें अपनी फिंगर को ऑन द लोअर लेफ्ट कॉर्नर, तो वहां पे एक माइक बना हुआ है और वहां पे उसके साथ चैट के साथ रेज हैंड की ऑप्शन आती है. तो there it is where you can actually raise your hand and ask a question. A lot of people are saying that they cannot actually come on the mic, so this might be good for the last session of question and answers. We will have Nabila Chaudhary, Dr. Saab, and this will be the last question that we will be taking from the chat, Dr. Saab, and then we'll
Sure.
proceed further. Nabila Chaudhary has asked, another challenge we are facing is how to keep our teams motivated. A very good question. While we cannot practice the traditional motivational strategies, how to adapt traditional leadership in tech-oriented new normal? I think this is an excellent question by Nabila.
It is. In fact, I agree with you. It's a very good question. You know, they have to arrange frequent online meetings and be in touch with each other, take people on board. And I have practiced it myself, and many of our colleagues are doing it, that if you take people on board, and in some cases, in fact, motivation level has increased, because lots of WhatsApp groups, lots of Zoom meetings, and even those people are talking who never talked in meetings and who never participated. Even they are posing questions, and even they are taking part, and they feel that they are part of the team now. So I think the key is to coordinate and to communicate very frequently, to make things very clear to them, and to tell them about strategies and the future plans, and involve them in the planning process, involve them in the decision-making process. And just like, you know, these Zoom tools have those poll options, and they have those creating discussion room options. So doing those things in terms of classes or in terms of meetings, they actually give people the sense of ownership. And I think the best thing is that whatever the leadership role is, that person should be fully cognizant of the fact that digital acquisition of digitalization, sensing capabilities, and acquisition of the capabilities of being able to communicate with people online and through IT is going to motivate them further, because it will involve them.
I would like to add on to this comment, Dr. Saab, if allowed to, and that
Yes.
I would give my personal example from our university and from SBE. I think one of the things that also needs to be done in this particular situation, as far as leadership is concerned, is to highlight how important a task the people are actually doing, how sensitive a task the people are delivering. And if that importance is reiterated to them, I think their motivation level goes up. Sir, I remember it was Friday, it was 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. I took a physical class, and on Saturday we heard there is lockdown. Dr. Saab, on Sunday, the entire day we had trainings and trainings and trainings on how to conduct classes. And I'm very proud to say over here that at the School of Business and Economics and at the University of Management and Technology, there was zero missed classes on Monday, but every class was held online. Even the 8 a.m. classes were held online, and we just shifted, within 24 hours, I would say. And prior to that, Dr. Saab, most of us had not even heard the name Zoom. And on Monday,
Alisa, let me add that this only happened because UMT was prepared for the sensing capabilities and the control tower of UMT in the times of great Hassan Sahib Murad Sahib, marhum. He was very keen to have EUMT made up, and our current president also has patronized EUMT very well. And because EUMT had that basic infrastructure in place, so it was
yes,
possible that every class was online in a space of 24 hours. Otherwise, there are many universities which didn't even have the option of converting to Zoom. They had no infrastructure in place. And there was some very good universities which lacked it. The credit
exactly.
goes to UMT, the credit goes to UMT top management, that they had actually they didn't know about Corona, but they were very well prepared for this switch. And the switch, as you say, came so swiftly and so smoothly that I remember I took a class in the office, um, and I learned it in the office in 1 hour or so. And on 16th or 17th March, I took the class, and then from that day onward, it was a lockdown, and we didn't feel anything because we were trained and we were very well prepared. And that is what we need. That is, I think, that was agility as far as UMT was concerned. SBE obviously depends on UMT for these sort of resources, and that was the organizational agility at best.
Okay, Dr. Saab, I guess thank you very much for those answers. Thank you. I'm sorry, participants, there are endless questions that are still in the chat box, but we have a limited time for the Q&A. So we will be having another Q&A session at the end of this webinar, and you will have another chance of asking Dr. Saab, whatever question you want to. And in the meantime, if you want to practice how to raise hands, you can do that. Rahman Saab. Acha nahi, that was okay, Dr. Saab, it's time to involve the audience again. Before we
Okay.
move to the next pasture, we will have another poll, and audience, we are going to ask you a few questions again, just like before. पोल आपके सामने आ जाएगा, और आपने अपने टेबलेट या अपने कंप्यूटर के ऊपर जो भी है, आप जिस चीज के ऊपर से लॉग इन हुए हुए हैं, you will be answering those questions over there. So you will be seeing the poll in front of you, in like, it should be there now. The second poll should be there now. It, I think so, contains, it has 5 questions. To the best of your ability, opinion, and point of view, you can answer these questions. And Dr. Saab, there are a lot of questions in the chat that are coming as far as the education sector and academia is concerned. So what we will do is we will address the last pasture after this poll. जितनी देर में polls जो है वो आते हैं, और उसके बाद once we have address that last pasture, what we will do is we can either have the same questions either on the mic, or I will read out the questions, and we will ask you to kindly address those particular
Sure.
questions.
Sure.
So okay, I guess now the audience is much more. We've already got 10% results almost in. So if you can all answer the questions, and then Dr. Saab will decipher the poll and will actually, share with you what his thinking and opinion is about the questions asked.
Already about 35%, 37, 38% now, 40.
Wow, these answers are come. Actually, the benefit that we have is that as you submit an answer, we have the option of seeing the results changing. So the graphs are going, like this, in front of us, and it is really very interesting. 51% of the audience has already voted. So we will wait, Dr. Saab, I think so till it reaches 70%, I guess.
Yeah, I think around that. Around
Okay,
that.
sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
So we have about
I-
56%.
जी मैं साथ साथ वो चैट भी देख रहा हूँ and so many people are commenting and they are मोहम्मद निसार खान जो है उन्होंने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा है वो हमने पोल में भी पूछा था निसार साहब ठीक है people think 6 महीने तक what my years in okay so these are interesting questions.
We have about 61% responses.
Do you want me
Yeah,
to proceed with
for
the
the
end?
for
Okay.
saving a bit of time. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And I think the results are in front of you, Doctor.
Right. So, as for the first question is concerned, people are saying that I've gone through a major drastic positive change in my life. Transformed. Yes, about 80% people who have experienced it, and that's very good to know. So they already know what a disorienting dilemma is, and decisions are taken based on critical reflection. About 64% is also very heartening to know, and the rest 34%, 36% will be thinking about critical reflection now, and about 97% people saying that this current pandemic is a disorienting dilemma. And I think that is a very good response, because they have understood what disorienting dilemma means and how it can, if they have appreciated that it is disorienting dilemma, I'm sure they will reflect on it and they will rationally have a dialogue with themselves, and that they will transform. And that's very good, because the first step taken in the right direction is in fact half the journey covered. Now, transformation happens best, people think, is interacting with society, and it's a good response because it happens at every level. It's with family, it can happen at school, it can happen at university. Only 5% is a bad news for faculty, because that means we are not acting as transformative agents, but it can happen at any level. And this is a good response again. And transformation of the whole person is well explained. Well, 56% people agree, and about 87% people think so. Because I think Maslow's theory is not very popular in Pakistan, and transformative learning is not a very in thing academically, unfortunately. The actually, the transformation of the whole person is not very well explained by these 10 steps. It's only cognitive side, rational side, but the emotional side of transformation, the spiritual side of transformation, and the collective side of transformation is not explained by these 10 steps. These 10 steps are good for building a base individually towards critical reflection. But because at a beginner level, I would agree with this question, that it seems that as if, these 10 steps have explained it holistically. But holistic obviously involve cognitive as well as affective, as well as attitudinal, as well as metaphysical self of us.
Dr. Saab, thank you very much. Dr. Saab, there is a comment rather than it is a question as well regarding the poll. It's from Aisha Sheikh, and I will just take that question because I think it is really pertinent. हमने जो पॉजिटिव चेंज के बारे में पहले क्वेश्चन के बारे में पूछा था कि क्या आपकी कोई पॉजिटिव ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन आई है. So Aisha is commenting and asking, sometimes negative change in life can pave way to positive transformation too? Question mark. Can a
Yes, it can.
negative change lead to a positive transformation?
I mean, I would read it as a negative disorienting dilemma. And corona situation is generally, obviously not a positive disorienting dilemma. It is generally a scary thing. It's a disease. It has a killing potential. People are distanced from each other. The social life has really been curtailed. So it is in overall, in that sense, it's a negative disorienting dilemma. But many positives have come out of it, and many positives can come out of it. And I think we'll be talking about those once we come to the education side. And we have already highlighted one, which was motivating people through online meetings, involving them through WhatsApp in the workplace. And in families, people have realized that they are more closer because they are quarantined and they are living together. They are understanding each other more. People are studying more. They are watching things on TV, which are not merely entertainment, but especially I would name that show from Turkey, the Ertugrul Ghazi, which has been educating people a lot about the history of Ottomans, about the existence of Ottoman and how they contributed for 6 centuries, and especially what will happen in 2023 when once the contract expires, which the Ottoman Empire undertook. So people were oblivious of these things, and I think they have now a bit of time and a lot of time, in fact, to concentrate on those things. So yes, and then one more thing is that all disorienting dilemmas do not lead to positive things. If we take the example of highly professional and notorious criminals, they had a disorienting dilemmas which induced the transformation which made them devils. So transformation works both ways. It can be very positive transformation, it can be very negative transformation, like a person being exposed to a lot of wealth suddenly and then asked to join a criminal gang is also a disorienting dilemma, which will force him to critically reflect and then rationally, so-called rationally make a decision and then act on it and start committing crimes. So that there is the dark side of transformation as well. Like, in life, it is always the other side as well. So that question reminds me to mention it, that the disorienting dilemma can induce a very negative transformation as well.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, it's been an hour and 40 minutes और इस time का पता नहीं लगा. That always happens when we are in discussion with you. You just make time fly. Dr. Saab, let's come to the last question. And now we would like to have, and there is a lot of questions about education and academia as well. So let's talk about the life after pandemic. How do you personify this state of being of people, and which contours will actually impact it? What is going to be our true north? This was a question in the chat as well, and this is one of the questions which a lot of us are very much interested to know. How would life be after pandemic, keeping in view transformative learning?
All right, so we come to this part now where we have models of learning, and let me make the full screen if it is working. So the models of learning, we could quickly see that, traditionally it's the instrumental learning, which means the lecture-based learning, positivistic learning, where teacher speaks and the students listen. This is the traditional way of learning, unfortunately, even at university level as well. But these 3 learning styles I've taken from Habermas, the famous German philosopher of learning. The second is communicative learning, that you involve people, you interact with them, you make them participate, and this obviously is a non-traditional way of learning. And the third is what we call as emancipatory learning. This is where transformative learning enters, and this is what emancipates people or makes them free from what holds them back. Now, what holds us back is our values and beliefs, which are disempowering beliefs, which when we critically think and we make the corrections and we align ourselves more, transformatively and more holistically, then we emancipate ourselves or free ourselves from those disempowering beliefs which we might be holding, like our biases or all the perceptual distortions is a better word for that. So emancipatory learning occurs when a teacher in the class induces disorienting dilemmas. When a teacher I will mention two models of teaching. One is called mindful teaching and the other is called student-centered teaching. Mindful teaching is when the teacher is very mindful of the class, where he is, what is being asked, what is being going on in the class, and at the same time, he's fully connected to the context of himself and to the context of his or her university, in the context of the country, the context of society, and the context of the globe. So that means the person is working or teaching simultaneously at multi-dimensional level. He is not just there, he is here and there as well. So that is what is mindful teaching, and that he's present in the moment, but he's connected with the past and he is connected with the world around him. Student-centered teaching is when students take the lead in running even the logistics of the class. When they decide what sort of grading formula should be applied in that course, what sort of assessments should be given. Once they are made competent enough, once they are transformed, and transformation and emancipatory learning leads to emancipation of collective society, because then our graduates, whether they are business graduate or whatever graduates, social science graduates, they'll start challenging the status quo. They'll start challenging the norms of the mainstream discourse of why this thing happens in our society. Why, for example, agriculture is not taxed. Why, for example, medical care is so poor in our country. Why justice is so impossible to get for ordinary people, and why justice is sort of a slave for those who have enough resources. When educated people start asking these questions, then societies change. Otherwise, if they join status quo as a cogwheel fits in a machine, then societies don't change. And it is the emancipatory, the role of teacher becomes highly important at every level, even starting from schools to colleges to universities. But if the teacher is not a transformative agent himself, then he or she will not be able to induce transformation. There is a third mode of learning as well, which is called visceral learning, V-I-S-C-E-R-A-L. Viscera is a term from my field, medicine. Viscera means organ. Now, visceral learning is when we as individuals are very conscious of our body rhythms or somatic rhythms, when we understand that when this thing happens to my body, it means XYZ. When I get suddenly hungry, it means this. When a particular gut-wrenching sounds, or gut-wrenching movement I can feel in my tummy, then it means this. When I feel that my heart is beating fast, then it means this. Or before what it means, at least are you aware of those changes in your body? So visceral presence, visceral learning is a key to transformative environment in the class, because the role of the teacher is to create an environment in the class which leads to transformation, which, as I said, presenting disorienting dilemma cannot be created artificially. You have to connect and people with your own self, and usually as a batch advisor or as a mentor, when you listen to their personal problems and you give them solutions. Now, I remember in 1996, we had a student who was a drug addict, and he was caught with the drugs in the campus, and the administration said we should fire him. And I and the great Dr. Hassan Murad, we discussed that case and we said, let's give him a chance and let's try to counsel him. We spent some time on him. And today, that person is director of a company. He completed a PhD. He became a very successful trainer in the meantime. He became very successful entrepreneur in the meantime. And now he's leading one of the big companies in Pakistan as a director. And had we administratively thrown him out of the university, we would have ruined his life, because we took a lot of interest in his personal life and we learned that he was a single parent family and many other private things about him. And that was very mindful of Dr. Hassan to go into the personal context of a student's life. And he was very student centric, and we had sessions with him. It transformed him, and today he is one of the very, very useful member of the society. So overall, out of the mentoring and the batch advising sessions in the class, it is not only the out of box visual presentations or fancy presentations which change students. That probably do not change students. It gives them skills, right? It is good to give them presentation skills. But if you really want to change them, you really want to transform them, then try to create some disorienting dilemma moments for them. Moments in which they are forced to think. Moment in which their paradigm shifts. Teach them things about individual paradigm shifts, about I've seen that at PhD level and MS level, it works when we talk about Thomas Kuhn and the paradigm shifts in terms of scientific revolutions, that how science changes, what is normal science and what is not normal science. What was Newtonian physics was normal science about 70, 80 years ago, and today it is still normal, but there is a new stream of knowledge coming in, which is called the superstring theory and the string theory, which will probably become normal science 20, 30 years down the road, or maybe earlier. And that is a paradigm shift as far as science is concerned. That is the transformation of science. It does not mean the old knowledge was wrong. It just means that there is new knowledge. There is transformation is the process which we in biology call metamorphosis. And the classic example of the caterpillar changing to a butterfly. And this is all how we keep on evolving, because without transforming, the evolution of the mind stops. So the next thing is using transformative learning, obviously in context of which we are saying that pre-corona it was all face-to-face. Now it is, in times of corona, it is totally online for the time being. But in future, what is projected or what is forecasted at the post-corona, it will be probably a mixed mode of hybrid learning, where there will be some sort of physical interaction and some sort of, but very briefly, especially for those who teach management and those who teach business strategy and policy, we tell people that capabilities and competencies build the competitive advantage. And this is the resource-based view. But this corona thing has taught us that capabilities and competencies, if they are not dynamic capabilities and dynamic competencies, and that comparative advantage will be eroded. And dynamic capabilities are those capabilities which we talked about earlier, which we termed as sensing capabilities and the ability to be agile, so that you can shift according to the demands of a very turbulent and dynamic environment, which cannot be predicted. And I'll give an example here of how linear projections go wrong. When during late 80s, one of the American government was trying to project how many mobile phones people will have by the year 2000, and they gave that job to the top consulting company McKinsey. And McKinsey made all those calculations based on linear modeling and linear thinking, and they said 900,000 people, 9 lakh people will have mobiles by year 2000. And you know how many of Americans had mobile by years 2000? There were 120 million people. So McKinsey was off target by 121 times. So that is how, rational or just capability, rational capabilities and competencies can misguide us if we do not think exponentially, if we do not think dynamically, which is obviously not going to be 100%, but it will be much closer than at least being off by 121 times. So business-wise, this was important that we realize that the capabilities and the what we teach them in business education and management education is that we prepare them for a future, which was already the management education was under a lot of critique, that it is preparing people through instrumental learning. It is preparing people who are not in sync with society. It was already in the air for the last 10, 15 years that management education is failing. As far as the Academy of Management Learning Education is concerned, it was really putting up a scathing criticism on management education. But now, with this thing, Corona, and now with this disruption, the role of management teachers and all the teachers, it has to be transformative to prepare people to face this new world, to prepare people to face this new life and new ways of working. And therefore, transformative education and transformative, it's not a separate course. It cannot be taught as a separate course, because we have seen what has happened with business ethics. Business ethics have been taught as a separate course, and what it has done to business world is it has delineated ethics from it, because every faculty teaches it differently. Some teach it philosophically, some teach it according to social science, some teach it according to religion, and students do not make anything out of it. Transformative learning and business ethics, they have to be shown to the students in the class, not taught to them as a separate course. So I feel that apart from some courses like mathematical and quantitative courses and statistical, even in statistical courses, I think transformative learning can be embedded. But all the softer skill courses and all the management OB courses, the business policy courses, the basic MO courses, the HR courses, PhD, MS level courses, transformative learning should be inbuilt in the way assignments are given, in the way assessment is carried out, in the way classes are conducted, and in the way the class environment is constructed by the teacher. And I think even during those assignments, even during those term papers, they will encounter moments of disorienting dilemmas. And the more we give them, the more disorienting dilemmas we give them, the more moments of eureka which we give them. And eureka reminds me of Archimedes, who, when he sat in that bathtub full of water and he saw that water is gushing out of the tub, he suddenly realized that the relationship between volume and mass insight, which was already in his mind for many years, he suddenly understood that in a flash, and he ran without dressing in the streets, crying that I found it. So we have to create those eureka moments for students where they inside their minds, they say that I have found it. And that is our duty as transformative teachers, as transformative faculty. And that is what we need to do. Ji Aliya Sahab.
Okay, sorry. Excellent, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much for giving this elaborated answer. And I think a lot of people wanted to correlate this with academia. And I think you have actually, hit the bullseye as to what transformative learning should be, how should we as academics should pursue this, how should we take it as an opportunity, how can we take it as a starting point. And I think so there are a lot of things that have been covered today. I will be summing up the key takeaways in the very end, but it is now time, Dr. Saab, for the audience, as we know that this is why we are here. This is why IKL and UMT has collaborated, because of the 90 plus audience that are in this room. So we will be now moving to the final part of our webinar, and we are doing good on time, Dr. Sab, as well. It is equally as much as planned. So if there are any question and answers from the audience, Abdul Rahman Sab, we would want you to keep an eye if there are any hands that have been raised. And Rahman Sab, if you can please kindly come on the mic once and tell the participants how actually do we raise a hand, because I think some of them, there are a lot of questions coming in the chat, but people are not coming on the mic. So if you can just quickly walk them through how to raise hand on the mic, I think so that will be beneficial. And in the meantime, Dr. Saab, we will address the questions that are in the chat. Rahman Saab, your mic, please.
Right. So if you're all online, if you're on your phone, if you look on the bottom right corner, there will be an option of more. So if you click on more, there will be options of liking, commenting, disconnecting audio, chat. There will be an option of raising a hand. So if you press that, your hand will be raised, and as soon as it does, I'll be able to open your mic. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, Dr. Saab, there was a question. There was a question from Kavar Sultana. If I can trace that question, I think that was very pertinent. And whoa, there are so many. Okay, I found it and I've lost it again.
Sir, I believe Sir Ali Chauhan Saab has raised his hand. I'd like to unmute him if you allow.
Okay, let's take Ali Chauhan. Yeah, please.
Okay. Sir, can you hear us?
Okay. Oh, I couldn't unmute earlier, so.
Right, you
Hello?
are unmuted now, sir. Can you hear us?
Okay, yes. All right, I just have I posted it also. I think that my question is a little bit related towards the authenticity in leadership. How important is that for transformative learning?
All right. I think you missed some part of this talk, and we talked about leadership. We talked about authentic leadership is a construct which is, part and parcel of leadership. So whether it is happening, I don't think any authentic leadership can happen without transformative learning. And a leader who can be labeled as authentic leader or a transformational leader or a servant leader or a level 5 leader has to be transformational in nature. If he or she is not transforming people, not inducing changes in their value system, not forcing them to challenge their values and beliefs, they are not authentic leaders. In that case, they are leaders by default. They are leaders because they are in that position. They are leaders because they have somehow resources, and and that's why they are in that position of hierarchy. And that does not make them leaders. So to be able to become authentic leaders, they have to have a value system which inspires people, which motivates people to become like them. And that is a disorienting dilemma when you see someone. And I personally, again, will quote my example of Dr. Hassan Saab Murad Marhoom. When I saw him, I did not realize he was so knowledgeable. I thought he's a very humble person who is head of an institution. But when I started to have discussions with him, that was a disorienting dilemma to me, that a person who is an engineer, a person who is an MBA from Chicago University, and a person who is coming from a family which is very well known across the world, is so knowledgeable, and at the same time, how can he be so humble and so smiling? And that was, to me, that was an experience which only a true authentic leader can inspire.
Okay, Dr. Saab, thank you very much. I don't know if there are any hands, but मुझे बड़ी मुश्किल से वो question मिला, तो I'm going to ask that question right now, Dr. Saab, इससे पहले कि वो गायब हो जाए. So Ms. Kavar Sultana is asking, what measures universities need to take to cater to the requirement of a different skill set in order to develop in students, to cater to the market dynamics, I think what her question means is कि वो क्या-क्या चीजें हैं जो कि skill set की requirement है students के लिए कि उनको
I think
prepare कर सकें.
basically they need to change the pedagogies, because if they are still on lecture method and they are, partly they are on case-based, partly they are on, I won't say case-based learning, because case-based learning is different. And I sincerely believe, because I've seen both the worlds of medicine and management, that management business education has to shift towards case-based learning, not case teaching oriented, case-based learning like we do in medicine. Like we do in medicine. In medicine, you actually are taught on a case. When you are taught pneumonia, you read whatever you want to read about pneumonia theoretically, but then in the morning you see about 10-20 cases of pneumonia, and you listen to their chests, and you inspect them, and you physically examine them, and at that time you connect your theoretical knowledge with the knowledge which you are getting right hands-on. So universities somehow need to be case-based. They have to have industrial problems brought in the classes and solved there. If if that is not happening, or if that does not happen, at least in 50% of the classes, at least 50% of the time, I think what we are doing is that we are training people for an abstract world which does not exist out there. Medicine I specifically use because in medicine, those people are teaching who are actually practicing daily. In legal field, lawyers are teaching who are actually practicing daily. But in management, anybody who has a PhD is teaching, you might not have seen industry even for a single day. And that is the biggest dilemma and the biggest obstacle towards transformative learning in management education, that people who are teaching management are not practitioners of management. If you are not a practitioner of management, I don't think anybody deserves to teach management.
Okay, Dr. Saab, again, a lot of questions coming in the chat, and we really are very grateful to our audience who are so actively participating. Mohammad Nasir Khan Saab, I will address your question in just a minute. You sent me a message, but before that, Dr. Saab, there is a very interesting question by Ikra. I'm sorry, that's the total name that I can see. And Ikra asks, sir, what if the leadership is not ready to change?
Yeah, that will be an obstacle. If leadership is not ready to change, then people, if they are following that leadership just because of an authority or just because they are there for a job, then unfortunately that organization will be a non-transformative organization. And because generally organization has its own values and belief system, which are the values and beliefs of the leaders. So if leaders are not willing to change, then it's very hard that that organization will change.
Okay. Dr. There is another question in the chat, and that is by that was requested by Muhammad Nasser Saab, Nasser Khan. I hope I am pronouncing it correctly. Nasar. Nasser Khan Saab पूछ रहे हैं जी कि please ask a question on my behalf. What should be the focus of our corporate trainings during the post-COVID era? And as you are an OD consultant and intervention specialist, sir, as well, I think so that is a very pertinent question. You have been giving consultancies and trainings on a very large scale. So I think so this is a very good question. And I would be asking that question as well because I am a trainer as well. What should be the focus of our corporate trainings during
I
the
think
post-COVID era?
these days, if we are conducting corporate trainings online, I would request that do discuss this notion of new normal. Do discuss what sort of changes we are staring at, and what sort of future we are staring at, and do talk about transformative learning at workplace, because we have just touched transformative learning in terms of education, but transformative learning and organizational learning are something which are, again, is largely required that organizations induce their employees, if they are claiming that we are a creative organization, for example, or we are an organic organization, or we are a team-based organization, then they have to provide a culture which is transformative in nature, a culture which encourages disorienting dilemmas, a culture which encourages people to ask questions and ask out of the box questions and challenge the leadership. And if leadership is challenged and they can bear that challenge, then, you know, in your trainings, you should be focusing on this aspect that leadership needs to be very tolerant to very brave and challenging questions, because those questions will lead to their transformation. We say that feedback always helps, and it is right, because feedback actually challenges our own values and beliefs about the way we are working. And if we are posed with challenging questions, with probing questions, that will lead to a virtuous circle of transformation in companies and in organizations. So I think the structural changes occurring in industry, even in manufacturing, we will not be seeing very taller hierarchies and flatter organizations, more horizontal or learning type of organizations, and the culture they demand. And a lot of emphasis, apart from IT, should be on softer skills, because IT demands a whole set of softer skills. Being a wizard in IT is not going to help if it is not coupled with very emphatic communication skills and passion to know people and passion to help people. So that is the need of the hour, that we need connectivity, we need empathy, we need compassion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saab. Abdurrahman Saab, do we have anyone on the mic?
Yes, sir. I believe we have Ikra who's got her hand up. Ikra, I'm going to unmute you now if you have your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, I have a question. Why in Pakistan there is no university and industry collaboration? We lack in that area.
Yeah, we do, because we have never conceived of universities as idea generating laboratories. Universities should be leading policy makers in the government. So it's not only academia, it is a collaboration between government, academia, and the corporate sector, even military. What they did in America through that, you know, military, academia, industry collaboration in 1950s, that, you know, your defense policies, your industrial policies, even your health policies, they should be coming from academicians. The interaction between, otherwise, you know, universities are not tuition centers. Their role is not merely to teach people and give them degrees. Excuse me. Their role is to change and help governments and societies. So unless, because they are academicians, they are at top of their knowledge. So when they interact with industries, they get the ideas from industry, and they theorize in this interactive, you know, relationship between academia and industry, and they help policy makers make policies. And if that is not happening and the three are working in isolation, then you will see that the three will be going in different directions. Right now, our education system is going towards south, and maybe the government is going towards north, and that will hamper the overall societal development, and that will hamper the, I think it is something which is in our you know, thinking systems, which we need to get rid of, but we will not be able to get rid of until the feudal system is broken, because it is in the interest of the feudal system to retain status quo, and as long as status quo is retained, there will be no serious effort to get this collaboration going. It is a very good point to raise in this webinar, that, you know, basic structural changes which are required for a transformative environment to nurture is actually breaking boundaries, and those boundaries will be furiously and very you know, will be fought by the forces of status quo and the main discourse, because they will like to keep separations to grind their own axes. But if we want to see the country flourishing and growing, then we need to use the universities as laboratories where ideas are germinated about public policy making, about health policies, education policies, about the industry and organizational working models, about the defense and military policies. We need a very close interaction.
Excellent answer, Dr. Saab. Thank you very much. Dr. Saab, there is a question in the chat from Marine Rahman. And again, it's a toughie. We are all aware we have to live with COVID situation by taking safety measures. Okay, well said, Marine, on that part. If higher management is scared to come to work, how to motivate staff as management itself is not ready to accept the situation? Salary reduction is there, that is stressful. Parents are stubborn to pay the fees. How to manage these hard times? Please guide us all.
You know, management has to lead by example, and they have to lead from the front. And if they are not in a particular age group, because generally it is advised that people who are above 60 should not be exposed to corona, no matter what sort of management cadre they are in. But all those who are not 60 and they are in top management cadres, they should be coming to offices in the same routine as the other people are coming. Because if they are not leading from the front, and it's giving a very I would say, a disempowering message to people that you have to come, but I will take advantage of being the top manager or whatever, being the top executive of the company. They have to come. And as far as the salary cuts are concerned, it is a problem which is the entire globe is facing, and that is why we are calling it a new norm. And we have to fight it off, and we have to think about raising, increasing our own revenues from some other sources. Maybe from some online work, maybe from YouTubing, or I don't know, because YouTubing is not possible in these days. But we have to think out of the box and not depend on one organization for the time being, if there are salary cuts. So again, we require agile 24/7 mind to cater to that. So we need to think non-traditionally to increase our own revenue base, because companies will be suffering as well. Because we have to understand that their revenue side is compromised, and when their revenues are compromised, then there is an extent to which they can carry on paying the normal amounts of salaries. But I don't think it will really hurt the education sector as much, because people will be needing education. People will be needing degrees in order to go in whatever form of work emerges online or whatever. They will still need qualified people. Those qualified people will be prepared by the education sector. So that is obviously it's not very clear at the moment, but this is how I think we should be tackling it, by thinking about other ways of, especially the young ones, other ways of raising revenue for their families, and those family members who are not working, maybe they can do something online, impart skills, and do something which helps the family.
Okay. Dr. Saab, a comment from a very beautiful comment coming from Kamran Hamid, and then a question from Aisha Sheikh. The comment that Kamran Hamid Saab has made is, disorienting dilemma has started as collapsing of a house of cards. Our computing machine predictions and forecasts are ineffective. Dr. Saab said rightfully only wise decisions could get us from this pandemic. And I think I really second that, Kamran Hamid Saab. That is really what Dr. Saab has been trying to reiterate and reinforce. A question from Aisha Sheikh, Dr. Saab, and this is something different, but I think so. It is again very important to our discussion. Aisha says, I think organizations also need to design WFH assignments carefully. By WFH, she means work from home assignments. as I have seen mostly people working round the clock now, and work-life balance is more compromised now. So in the longer run, people will feel more burnout in work from home assignments instead of making it feasible or workable thing. So on a lighter note, before you answer that, Dr. Saab, I just found something yesterday and I put it on Facebook. And this is just on a lighter note that I think you didn't understand our work from home policy. Work from home means working from 9 to 5 in working hours and the rest of the non-working hours as well. So your comment, how prudent it is to have a proper work from home policy, sir?
Uh, I think even before the pandemic, the mobile and the IT technologies were putting a lot of pressure on work-life balance, and people were under a panopticon gaze all the time. In 80s, for example, or 90s, people, when they signed off from work, they actually signed off, and they were just connected. They were not connected with anything. I'm not talking about medical profession, but generally in offices and in management and in management office especially. Now that has been eroded for the last 10-15 years, that people are connected through phones and through emails and through WhatsApp and all those softwares which through which people are already working. I think 24/7 at least. In SBE I also see that culture, that whenever even at Fajr time or whatever odd times we can communicate, we do. And we demand things that, I need it tomorrow or I need it in 3 hours. This was already in the air. Now, those organizations which are not geared up for this will feel this crunch and will feel that, suddenly their work-life balance has been made highly skewed. But I agree with you in general that as technology grows, whether with Corona or without Corona, this encroachment in private life will continue to happen. And I take it as a curse of capitalism. I take it as a curse of late unleashed capitalism, because I think the idea of oppressed and the oppressor will keep on oppressing people that, right, now you have this technology, so you give me answer. To me, it is a sort of hegemony, and to me, it is a sort of the same story which I was telling you from the beginning. And it will continue in the name of technology, you call it, in the name of your, but at the same time, it is a brighter side. And right now, you have taken a class of 3 hours and you can immediately switching off, you can relax, you can lie down, you can watch TV. You're not in office, actually, you're in your home environment. And you might have, some of you might have seen my cats wagging their tails around me. So you have that sort of luxury as well. So it is a double-edged sword. It has those, pitfalls which you mentioned. You can hear them in the background. My cats in my office, I don't have that luxury to see them around me. So
I was going to say there are audience coming in between your presentation at your end.
There were not only audience. One or twice I had to control them from jumping in my lap, and twice I could see them on camera. The tails were wagging. But then you enjoy this as well, and that gives you energy to work further. Because purely sitting in office and doing a very sitting dressed up and doing all those professional things, and suddenly you're at home doing all that work, but you have this homely, cozy environment around you, and when you switch off, you can really go and take a shower or whatever. You can watch TV, you can have your snack, you can have your walk, or you can turn the TV on, and then you can come back to work. So I think we have to self-motivate ourselves in the face of it. Otherwise, it is relentless. Because if we start feeling the heat, then there is no way to escape it. Then we will get depressed. Then we will burn out. So the best thing is to face it, and to face it happily and pleasantly, and to enjoy the blessings which are disguised in it.
डॉक्टर साहब इसी से एक मेरे ज़हन में अभी एक सवाल है. This is a tricky one to you. should we or should we not stay away from social media? Looking at all the negative vibes coming, on the social platforms.
But I think we need to know what is happening around, and we cannot know unless we indulge in it. So be selective in believing and be wise in believing, and double check the news, which is mostly the news on social media is unreliable. So, but sometimes you get a breaking news there. But YouTube is full of very good, platforms of studying and platform of keeping yourself busy. WhatsApp is an excellent way to communicate as far as the colleagues are concerned. Facebook is highly informative, and I think it keeps you updated of what, at least it gives you the pulse of the people, what they are thinking. Because when you are seeing all those unreliable news, it means people are wanting it to happen, or people are fearing that it will happen. So it gives you a feel of the society in general.
Okay. Dr. Saab, there are still comments coming, but by the way, Mehreen Rahman. Mehreen, I'm sorry I skipped your question. The chat is moving very fast in my screen, and I have to keep my eyes on multiple tracks. So if you can
Ali
just.
Saab, can you give me 2 minutes off, because I have to manage these cats now. They're really getting on me. Just give me
Sure.
1 minute.
Balke, in the meantime, I will read a few comments in the meantime. And Sanam Batul, yes, IKL team can get in touch with you, or you can keep on visiting our website www.ikl.ae. If one of my team moderators can type the web link on the in the chat room as well, that will be good. We are almost coming to the end of our webinar, and I think so some people are saying it's salah time as well. So yes, we will be I think so just winding up our session pretty soon, let's say in the next 5 or 7 minutes. Izhar Ali Lagari Saab has a comment. I believe middle management can play a pivotal role in acting as the interface between lower staff and upper management. I think Izhar Saab is addressing one of the previous questions that was related to top management. I think he's saying that middle management can play a pivotal role, and also if upper management should define the SOPs and convey it to the lower staff, and if lower staff can get the job done from home, the top management might understand and let workflow prevail that way. So yes, it's a very good statement. Mehreen, I have your question now. Thank you very much for retyping it. I'm sorry, I apologize. But once Dr. Saab comes back, I can put your question to Dr. Saab. I think Dr. Saab is managing his family, because that is his family for him. And okay, so if when Dr. Saab comes, and in the meantime, Abdul Jazdani and Shakil both have mentioned the website of IKL in the chat box. So if all of you can keep on visiting, and someone, if you want the slides, a lot of people are asking for the slides. I will be giving a summary and a wrap up of key takeaways that we have been discussing since the last 2 hours. I don't know if I can, I'm sure I can never match up what Dr. Saab said and delivered, but I will try to, bottle it up. We will take Mehreen's question in the end, and then what we will do is we will be going to the wind up session. Unless and until there are, let me check if there are, actually Zoom requires us to manage multiple screens. So just if I want to check if there are any hands up. Okay, no, there are no hands up so far. And what I will be doing is that, yeah, there are so many takeaways, Mohammed Nasar. And what we will be doing is we will be trying to cover them up and summarize them up. We are going to have other series. IKL and UMT and School of Business have constantly been coming up with webinars and informative sessions. And please keep on checking our websites, keep on checking SB's website, keep on checking UMT's websites. There is a lot of stuff in store for all of you. I hope for some it is beneficial, and some, some things are important. What I will do is, in the meantime, well, I should be waiting for Doxa, because then.
I'm here, sir.
Gee, okay. So, Dr. Saab, there is one very important question. Please answer this from Mehreen Rahman. I asked her to paste this question twice. She's been asking, but her question got lost in chat. How to work with other colleagues working at the same level in management, as I am feeling odd one out, who is ready to change self and have flexibility, compared to the others who are not ready to work from home and from office. Coming off is like scared of coming to office is like being scared of corona. Working from home is no light, no net, children in the house, chores, burden on one colleague due to this behavior. So she's saying she's ready to change, but her colleagues are not, and she's feeling as if she's the odd one out. So, Marine, that's an excellent question. Dr. Sam, your thoughts on this?
Right. Unfortunately, you have control only on your own self. So you cannot control people, even if you are in a driving seat. You cannot control them. What you can do is to talk with them and tell them that connectivity and the electricity issues again are macro issues. There are a substitute to this. You can have your mobiles and your PCs fully charged up all the time on batteries. You can have alternative for that, alternates for that. And as far as connectivity is concerned, I think most of the organizations will be helping their employees in trying to get a better bandwidth. As for coming to office is concerned, the best thing is that if you are 6 people, divide the week, that 2 people will come on Monday, 2 will come on Tuesday, and then 2 days a week, or maybe maximum 3 days a week. It should not be more than that. And mixed with working from home, that if you are coming 2 days and rest of the 4 days, or maybe it actually is 5 days, rest of the 5 days you work online, and that compensates for not coming to office, and at the same time keeping yourself physically active, and building your immune system, having lots of fluids, and taking lots of fresh fruits, and a bit of supplement these days, having egg at least one a day, having all those good mangoes and the avocados and the spinach and the teas, the herbal teas which people are having, and taking one lemon juice, a glass a day, fresh lemon, without adding any additive to it, and staying, praying to Almighty to save us and save everyone. And that's, as I said, there's a lot of self-motivation required these days. And usually in textbooks and in classes and in life, we are not trained for self-motivation. We are trained to provide extrinsic motivation to people, to reward them, or to intrinsically satisfy our own desires, which is intrinsic motivation. If I want to paint, I will paint for my own sake. But self-motivation, which is actually, remaining motivated in the face of very difficult circumstances, even in the face of failure, is what is required. That every day you be, I know our timings have changed. Getting up has become very, very relative. Some people get up very early, some people are getting up late, depending on what sort of circadian rhythm they are maintaining. So whenever you get up, make a promise to yourself that I will do my best, and my Almighty, pray to Him to give you the best capabilities. And there is a hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that when you get up, and if you have enough food for that day, if your hands and body is working, consider yourself a king for that day. So that is a great self-motivator, because if just think about that day. Thinking too far ahead in normal circumstances was even a bit worrying. But in these circumstances, thinking a bit too far away is very, very worrying, and will just deplete your mental and physical and emotional resources. And remember, immunity is highly dependent on the state of mind. Because if we are worried, we are in fact eating away our immunity, and we are becoming more and more vulnerable to the attacks. So keep yourself pleasant and happy, and enjoy the time with your family and online interaction with the world. Because remember, in class you're exposed to 30, 40, 50 people, but in webinars and other meetings you're probably exposed internationally. So keep thinking about this, that I'm learning from other people whom I could never have learned from. So keep the good things in your mind and shut off I wish I had some time to do an NLP type of seminar webinar with you in future, which will be all about how to keep negative thoughts, how to block negative thoughts, and how to feed on your positive thoughts.
डॉक्टर साहब, आई डोंट थिंक कि आज के वेबिनार के बाद हम आपकी जान छोड़ेंगे. तो obviously we would love to have you back again with a new topic, and your information that you've shared with us is so, it has so actually opened so many horizons in my mind, and I'm pretty sure that is also the case with the participant. Dr. Saab, we are over time, but I will take one last question. This is an important question, very much related to the topic as well. But if you can quickly answer Sayyid Shahzeb Pirzada's question. It's a very interesting question. How triple loop learning differentiates transformational learning? And this will be the last question, and then we will sum up.
Right. I think triple loop is I would say it's another name of transformative learning, because in double loop and triple loop, you critically reflect back on what you have done. You have taken an action, you have acquired a knowledge, and you have learned something. Then before trying it, you critically reflect on it. Then you do it. And then you critically reflect in the light of what have you done. So you keep on building that loop of knowledge by action, and the praxis of action and reflection never breaks. And it's a very good question, because it aligns transformative learning with not only with our rigorous model of double loop learning, but with triple loop learning. That yes, when you take an action and you reflect, because as somebody said, I think Paulo Freire says, that action without reflection is just activism, and reflection without action is just verbalism. So if we are not reflecting, our actions will be nothing but activism, the Sheikh Chili Pulao or whatever you say. And if we are not acting on our reflections, then those reflections are verbalism and nothing else. So it's a very pertinent question, and I would say that triple loop learning is very much related with transformative learning. The basic mechanisms are same. Now, before you wind up, Ali Raza Saab, can I have the permission of showing one slide?
Sure,
one last slide, very quickly.
Sure,
because
please.
I thought that will somehow. This is the societal perspective of transformative learning, the last one which I wanted to show. And here we are looking at educational institutions which are embedded in businesses. Because education institutions like management education and the universities, they are embedded in an environment, and the most proximal to them is business, and then they are surrounded by society. And you can see these arrows. These arrows reflect these three discourses: the educational institute discourse, the business organization discourse, and the societal discourse. They interact all the time. So this interaction, actually what we are spurring and in educational institution through transformative learning, that will not be contained there. It will spiral out in a collectivistic manner. It will spread out in businesses. It will spread out in organizations. From there, it will go to society at large. When society is transforming, it will press back the educational institution and organizations to transform. So this this sort of, interaction between these discourses is what transformative learning is, visualizes and envisions to take place. And this is, again, the people who are exposed to Seki model of Nonaka, they will understand that Nonaka also talks about spiraling out effect of
Yes.
knowledge. And this is in the same, insight, using the same insight from individual to organizations, from organization to society, and then society to transnational, and transnational to ecology, ecology to cosmology, and it doesn't stop. And the effects are interchangeable. So that is what I wanted to show people, and obviously I wanted to express my thanks as well. If there are any other questions, I will be very happy to answer.
Dr. Saab, the questions are endless, but I think so there is a common consensus, both in the chat and at our end as well, that we need to have you back again very soon on a new
My pleasure,
topic.
sir.
And we would be honored. We would love to do that. I'm sure today's discussion was very insightful and enlightening. I cannot be even close to what a job Dr. Saab did, but being my role as the session moderator, it is my duty to quickly sum up what we have had discussed in the last 2 hours plus, actually 2 hours 40 minutes now. Basically, life as usual is not going to be there. There are going to be a lot of changes. There are going to be international supply chains, digital world. The liquidity of assets is going to be of paramount importance. The concept of fixed cost is going to change, and environmental sensing is going to be one of the key things if we need to move ahead in the environment. Now, when we talk about transformative learning, the third pasture that we were discussing, transformative learning is basically, it starts at the mental level. It's more cognitive in nature. And basically, there is a difference between reflection and then critical reflection. And that is what participants need to understand. The beliefs and values, they create perceptions, but how we start questioning those perceptions is what turns reflection into critical reflection. That is what I have understood as far as the gist of it is concerned. Now, there were 10 steps that Dr. Saab mentioned as far as the transformative learning process was concerned. It started with disorientation. That is the first thing. And it went all the way up till the last step, which is reintegration. And it will start with disintegration, but it cannot necessarily be linear. It can be, parallel to other things as well. There are two very important takeaways that I will discuss in the end. But when we were talking about the last pasture, I will try to be very brief, Dr. Saab. The model of learning that we talked about, there are some very important insights. First of all, an emancipatory learning will be required. We need to free ourselves from biases, and we need to free ourselves from distortion. Only then will we be able to land into this entire concept of an emancipatory learning. As far as education and academia and teaching is concerned, there were two main models that Dr. Saab discussed: mindful teaching versus student-centric teaching. And the important takeaway here that Dr. Saab said was that teachers have to be the transformation agent. They have to, जिसके अंदर उन्होंने visceral learning की भी बात की है, and they have to create an environment. It is the teachers that have to create an environment which will actually lead to transformation. So a lot of responsibility falls on the burden of the teachers. And then we talked about the paradigm shifts in theories as well. For example, starting from Newtonian theories going down to string-based theories. So transformation is even happening over there, and transformation is happening in every field. But transformation has to be inbuilt. You need, as academics, you need to find those eureka moments for your students. That is essentially important. And then Dr. Saab talked that it has to be a spiral. Society, business, and the academia, education, all three should have a spiraling effect that would, be creating this transformation. The last two very important points, which I saved for the very end, although they were discussed in between, the two important takeaways that I personally think, and my knowledge is limited, but I'm just giving it a shot, is first, Dr. talked about not capabilities, but we need to have dynamic capabilities. डायनामिक कैपेबिलिटीज होंगी तो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशनल लर्निंग जो है वो एट द एंड आप एग्जीक्यूट कर सकेंगे एंड देन लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग to get out of this entire scenario and to get out of this entire situation, what is required is structural changes. Structural changes are required if we really want to get out of this situation as far as COVID and Pakistan is concerned. Dr. Saab, from the core of my heart, I really thank you for such an insightful and such a knowledge-filled webinar. As said previously, we are not letting you go. We will request you, sir, to please keep on coming very regularly. NLP can be a very good starting point, I think so, as a topic, but then, we can think about what is coming towards IKL. In the very end, Dr. Saab, your closing comments, and then I would be thanking everyone and signing off. So, sir, any last comments that you would like to have?
First of all, I'm very grateful to IKL and especially to Ali Raza Saab for giving such a wonderful introduction and then being such a great moderator and then at the end closing it so beautifully. I mean, nobody could have summarized it better than what he did. Just my gratitude, very sincere gratitude to all those who participated and those who posed questions. They provided me with the chances of learning and they provided me those little spots of disorienting dilemmas. And just a last thing, that transformative learning, when we talk about emancipatory learning at individual or organizational or societal level, we have to ask questions which are against status quo. In fact, in one line, transformative learning is breaking the status quo. And that status quo is not only at societal level, but that is also at organizational and at individual level. First of all, we have to break the status quo in our mind. We have to challenge what we have been thinking as right, what we have been thinking as the only way of doing. We have to challenge that. If we cannot do that, then we will not be able to challenge organizations, environment, and society. And if we do, then it will be mere verbalism. There will be no punch in it. There will be no spirit in it. So in order to make our voice spiritful, in order to make our voice to make a difference, we have to transform our own self all the time, because transformative learning is not a one-time process. It is a lifelong process. And it was a dream of Dr. Hassan Saab Murad that lifelong learning becomes the main purpose of UMT. And lifelong learning, obviously education and university is only a part to it. The real partner of lifelong learning is our own self. If we are learning all the way through our life, and that is only possible if we are transforming all the way through our life. And with that, I wish you all very, very safe times and very happy times ahead. All my prayers and all my best wishes. My thanks to IKL team. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Dear participants, there are a lot of people who have made this webinar possible. My amazing back-end team, which is always behind the scene, but is actually the one which is making. मैं तो 10 मिनट पहले उठ के तैयार होके तो आके यहाँ पे बैठ गया हूँ, and everything was ready, up and running as usual, to the best perfection as one could think of. I would really like to thank our UMT and IKL team, specifically Ms. Rabia Shakil, Mr. Shakil Ahmed, who has been, inviting all of you from the waiting room here. A very big round of applause to Miss Aisha Mahmood, who has spent tireless days and nights working on this webinar, and Mr. Abdur Rahman Yazdani, who has been working with me hand in glove to making sure that we had an error-free from cut to cut webinar. So thank you very much, Team IKL. We cannot but possibly thank Dr. Naveed Yazdani enough. Sir, what you have given today has really been, I have been conducting a lot of webinars, and I have really felt really educated today on so many aspects of life. और मैं आपकी एक बात को दोबारा दोहराऊंगा जो आपने बड़ी importantly की कि if you have food for today and if your hands and limbs work, think of yourself as a king. I think that was a very positive note that you quoted through the hadith of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last but not the least, I think a very big round of applause to all participants who were actively communicating in the chat, who have been with us from start till the very end, who have been posting excellent questions, and they have actually given this webinar a really three-dimensional affair to the discussion and to the topic. So all participants, thank you very much. Without you, this would not have been possible. Please stay tuned on our website in future. All of those who have attended this webinar will be getting e-certificates emailed to you on your registered email addresses. The recording of this webinar will be available on our LinkedIn and Facebook website. Ms. Aisha will be doing that very soon. And thank you very much everyone for coming here. On behalf of the Institute of Knowledge and Leadership and on behalf of University of Management and Technology in general and School of Business and Economics in particular, thank you very much everyone. This is Ali Raza Sayyed signing off. Assalamu alaikum.